Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. Got the deck up here on the sawhorses, doing a little bit of electrical work. This is a part of a build that kind of tests your patience, tests my patience anyway. What I've got going on here, obviously made me a little bracket to hold up my controllers. This kind of serves two functions. One, to hold up the controllers, and two is an issue that a couple people have raised to me regarding the strength of these braces. They're concerned with it getting pushed left or right. I'm not concerned with that because the design of this 4-bar linkage means that the bars themselves are only going to experience tension and compression loads. There's never going to be a side load on those bars. The only way a side load could happen on this to potentially bend this is if I hit something. But otherwise, it's all going to be forward and compression and tension loads. I've gone ahead and, believe it or not, tidied up these wires a lot. I've made a little diagonal bracket down here and got these 3 phases. Now what's going to happen from here is these are my motor leads. That's that one over there, one in the middle, and then going through a little hole there to kind of make it look nice. I'll have a guard over the top of this too, so you won't be able to see any of this mess at all. It'll probably drop down a little bit, but that all looks really nice. Now the next thing I've got to do, these are my 12 volt or my battery voltage 48 volt inputs, and they're all going to get wired in parallel together with that little doohickey down there. They'll get parallel together somewhere. I got to figure out where that is. That somewhere is probably going to be here. So I'll need to extend all these wires down. And it needs to be right here. And then from here, it'll go through a clamp that I'll have 3D printed, and it'll go back to the mower. And that's how power will get to all these things. Now the way I'll actually stop and start these motors, this is a little potentiometer, and this will variably control the speed of the motors. And what I'm going to do is I've got it marked right there. That is sort of where 3600 RPM is, and roughly what 32 volts is, which is, if you recall, that's what these motors are. I'm running 48 volts, but right there is 3600 RPM. So what I'll do is I'll have this set there at 3600 RPM. This will be kind of accessible. I may make a little bracket, a little mount down there so I can come out of the tractor and adjust this, but it'll be out of harm's way. Anyway, and the way to start and stop these motors, since I don't want to get off of the thing every time and turn that knob up, is you make or break the wire going into the controllers. So that means that this and this and this, those will all be in parallel as well, except for the reds. The reds will all be tied together, but they will go through a relay that's going to be on the tractor. And then whenever I get my little PTO switch and I flip it up, that'll complete a circuit for a relay, and that will allow the red from my potentiometer to go in through these leads, and it'll just complete a circuit. There won't be any voltage involved with that relay, but for completing that circuit. But that's how that do. So I got to figure out how to do that, how to make all this tidy. Now, here's where I face my problem. I could just cobble this together. Like I could just sort of make it and zip tie it and, electrical tape it away so that it is kind of stood off, and then I can at least start the thing and see if it goes and see if this has been worth all of the trouble. But that's not how I roll, y'all. I make it look good. I try and make it look good. And then whenever I plug it all up and it works, then I'm done. All I gotta do is just take it all back apart and paint it. I don't have to come back through here and tidy it up and have this same issue. I'm taking care of this tidying up issue right now. I've come over here and started messing around with the wiring on this side. That relay is going to be placed down there. It's where I had it mounted once already, but the relay is going to be there. That's for making and breaking the potentiometer. And then, I don't know, it's just a whole bunch of things that now I'm just kind of stuck and I can't do anything. And it's kind of frustrating. Anyway, Okay, new weekend, last weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. Hope y'all had good Thanksgivings if you're in a place that celebrates such a thing. I had a bit of a I ran out of stuff to do because I ran out of parts to do it with, and it was really annoying. So I did not get a whole lot done. But I did talk about the little shelf that's on there, which isn't anymore. But the biggest thing, other than getting the parts I needed to go ahead and finish doing this, is I made a cool thing. This, of course, is my little motor. And I've always been concerned that with the blade being up here, it's going to have a lot of side load on it. It could get into some kind of like fluttery situation or something. Or if I hit something, it could whack that thing sideways. Now, this is designed, this is a motor out of a like a little Husqvarna lawnmower. So I mean, it's designed for that kind of duty. But I've added an extension on this, so that sort of amplifies the amount of force going into this little bearing. And I've always been concerned that it's just too much for it. So I wanted to make some sort of a carrier. So I ordered some bearings from McMaster Car, and I got these things from work. These are fantastic. I'm not sure the OD of this, maybe around 3 inches or so. But the idea of this is exactly 2 inches, and it's actually honed. I have a feeling that these pieces, ended up getting about 9 inches of this stuff. I have a feeling it's going to be very expensive. But in the machines that we build, we got these dudes called pull rolls. And what they do is they grab a hold of the piece of paper or cardboard. And when it's time, theoretically, they grab a hold of the cardboard and shove it through the machine, and the machine does the things that the machine does. And what we'll do is these will go on a 2-inch chrome shaft, and then the OD of these will be, we send them off and have a coating of rubber put on it, so for grippiness. Anyway, I got these things, and the bearings that I got from McMaster Car are 2 1/16 OD. So that is not going to be any problem honing these out, or not honing, but boring these out to 2 1/16. And I even did one of these on my little lathe, and this took a really long time because that lathe can only take short little choppy bites. This took about, I don't know, a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe. Could have been more to get down there. And the problem was, how the hell was I going to do this? What I wanted to do was make a little plate that goes all around here that you could screw in from the top, and it'll be threaded on this plate. And the plate will obviously hold the motor, sandwich the deck, and give it all a little bit more rigidity. But this was going to end up being up here in space, and I thought if there was a way that I could have that up there in space with a spacer or something, I could make little braces or something to go down to my motor plate there, and then that'll hold that from moving around and stuff. But man, holding that straight and square and centered and all that stuff was going to be a mess. And as soon as you apply some heat for welding, this is going to get oblonged, and the whole thing is going to shift depending on which one you tack first. It's just going to be really hard. So what was going to end up happening is we're going to have to make the motor plate, and I was going to have to make this, but not bore it to final size. Somehow figure out where the midway, where the middle of this is, square, level, parallel, all that stuff. Put my little supports on there, take this whole thing off, put this plate in the lathe, and then hit the inside of this. And that way, all of this would be concentric and whatever. But that was just going to suck. And then a dude at work suggested that if I make these a little bit longer, then I could just extend that all the way down to the motor plate, weld that to the motor plate, and then we'll go from there. And I was like, that is a great idea. And I would actually like to take this time to thank some people at work there's some really, really smart guys where I work, machinists and fabricators and stuff, but just CS, TJ, GB, ZP, and DB, you guys know who you are, but you guys have all been a huge help. And of course, I want to again thank my work, RJE, for letting me go in there and use their equipment and having materials on hand that I can buy from them. So I want to thank all them guys. Anyway, so he's like, hey, why don't you just take one of those and weld that to your little plate? And I said, that's a great idea. So that's what I did. So I took these, figured out how long this needed to be, faced off both edges, made all three of these the same length, welded it to a 6-inch wide by roughly 5.5-inch long piece of 3/8 flat bar, welded that down flat, and then hold on to this into the chuck, drilled out a center hole there, and faced that surface off. Then before I cut the OD of this, put this in the mill, and then bored the inside of that to get the right size for these bearings to drop in. After I did the bore, I drilled and tapped my mounting holes for the motor. And then I took it out of the mill, put this back in the chuck of the lathe and did the OD there. And that's it. Then I was able to smoosh this in. This has got about a 1/1000th to a 1.5 thousandths interference fit. And then what happens then, obviously, is that goes on top of that, and all my little holes line up, and you end up with these guys. Let's go underneath and see how that looks. How about that? So that came out great. The bearings are kind of noisy because they are still they're not lubed yet, but there's no friction or anything in there. And I was really concerned about getting this right, because if somehow I machined this crooked or whatever, if everything wasn't concentric and centered and all that stuff, it will damage the bearings much faster than if I didn't have them there at all. So I wanted to be careful and get that right. And I believe I did. And there you go. So that's pretty awesome. Let's put this back together and then see what I'm up to. Well, guys, I think I made some serious progress here. I got all my cables all cut to length. But otherwise, I think we're good to go. Let's give this thing a test drive. Wait a minute. Yeah, let's do that. Let's give this a test drive. Well, it's getting kind of dark, and I don't really have any decent grass to cut, but this is what we're going to do. I've got the little potentiometer set to about 75%, and all we're going to do here, do like that. That turns my main contactor on, and then if I do like that, listen. Definitely cutting grass for what little grass there is. Now, I don't know if I've got it. Oh, look at that. Look at that grass spitting out. Well, hell, that works great. Shit, that works great. Like I say, this grass isn't very long, so it's not a very good test. Shoot, I don't know. That's pretty cool. All right, guys, that's pretty cool. I even put it up in the sort of lifted position to see how it did on the tall stuff. It's just not tall enough right now for me to know. I don't know. Maybe I need to add another link to that chain, because this tallness that I have right now is too tall. I don't know. And it would probably be better if it was horizontal. So if I just put a little tab right here for that to stick in, that'll drop the front end of the mower down. But that might be a pain in the butt. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Now it's all grass all over it. And but I did a little bit out and back on my field out there just to just for the hell of it. And nothing got warm. Of course, I wasn't running it, but 2 minutes. So, but that's pretty cool. I think the last thing for tonight, I want to show you this. I made this little thing. And I wanted to have something on there to protect, you know, all the stuff from debris, from limbs or something going in there and hitting things. And it has louvers. I did that for two reasons. First reason, I got a good friend who's been on my ass for, oh, shoot, 15 years, maybe more, to put louvers on something. So I hope this satiates his desires. I could actually put two on there, and I don't actually have the hole drilled out yet because I haven't decided if I want to put two on there. Two will just barely fit, but I don't think it's necessary, and I think it'd be too much. I know what he's going to say, but I think one's going to be good, obviously, for some ventilation in there. But yeah, so I'd say that was a pretty good first run. I'll give it another shot tomorrow if it's not raining. It may or may not be. But all right, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.